Spider-Man, Spider-Man, doing whatever a spider. Who started the recording? Just a gag, you know. One of my favorite comic books. So I'm double dipping. The Fantastic Four. That's all I want to say. So welcome to the Thursday class. I'm your host and master of ceremonies, as always, Chris Tower. Thank you for joining me. Unlike week one, I'm going to keep this short. If I'm reusing this in summer quarter or even fall quarter, that could still be true. This video is going to be short regardless. Short for me. So I'm trying to make good use of your time. This is the video to describe what I have decided to call a document called, there's the word called twice. That was a terrible sentence. This is the video about a document that I have decided to call the Writing Learning Companion. And so what is a Writing Learning Companion? Well, it is a document that you use to study writing. This has always been sort of an issue with our writing classes, right? Because students, you have experience with writing. You've done writing, in your past. Some of you, concurrently in another course. Some of you just last quarter, either as a high school student or as an LCC student. Some of you not academically, maybe in a long time because you're returning to school after a big break, but you still were writing. You were texting, you were emailing, you were writing letters, you're writing grocery lists, you're writing Christmas cards, who knows, you're just writing all sorts of things. So, you have experience with writing. And because writing is something that's so natural and all of us do at some level of skill and literacy, it isn't always seen as something that needs to be studied. And so often students in writing classes, early composition classes, just do the writing. They don't prepare to do the writing. They just sit down and do the writing. And often, if they are somewhat practiced, they feel that they're spinning gold. That I've had students say, I didn't really think that I needed to do any revisions on this because, I don't really see anything that needs to be changed. And this is a bad attitude to have about writing. You talk to any real writer, they will probably tell you, and I want to say probably because it's most of them, that even if the thing that you're reading is published, that they see things that they could change about it. A lot of established writers don't really think fondly on some of their previously published works because of that. And some famous writers, as I talked about last week in the first set of videos, like Walt Whitman, spent their whole life rewriting the same things to get it right, Because a mantra, an adage, it's not really a mantra. Well, maybe it is a mantra. An adage that we'll have all quarter long is that writing is never done. It's just do. You just turn it in because you have to. I spent a lot of time, years and years writing in journalism, writing for newspapers. And a lot of what I wrote were reviews of theatrical plays. And in some of those cases, I couldn't even watch the whole play. I had to leave early because I had to file the review by like 11:30 or midnight or something like that, and so I didn't have a lot of time to think about it. I didn't have a lot of time to do multiple drafts. I had to get practice at writing fairly well pretty quickly, and actually was starting to write the thing during the play. I mean, when you see reviewers scribbling, it's because I'm starting to write the thing and I'm writing it in my head, right? So you learn all those tricks, right? This would seem natural. This study of what you're doing, it would seem natural in another class. Like, for instance, if this was a French class, you wouldn't just sit down to write a paper in French without studying quite a bit of French. You wouldn't, go to France without at least reading the phrase book on the way there. trying to practice and learn some things to say when you get to France, because otherwise they can be mean about language. They'll make fun of you. They made fun of me when I was just asking for a bottle of water, and I was totally not pronouncing it well. Or math. Recently I went back to school and I was taking math again. And so, like after I relearned the college algebra, because it's been a long time, like many of you that are coming back to school after a long time, it'd been a long time since I'd done math. I won't tell you how many years, but it was a lot of years. It's more years than some of you are old. And so after I did the college algebra and kind of refreshed my memory of how to do algebra, that was in pre-calculus, and they expect you to remember all the algebra. Then I get into calculus, and they expect you to remember all the pre-calculus, all of it. All the math that came before is the math that you know. It's not like you can learn pre-calculus and then, really use it again. No, you use it again. And this is really what writing classes are supposed to be. It's a cumulative learning system, right? That you learn skills in your school, like you learn them. That's why it's a core curricula, part. It's a part of the core curriculum, in all public schools, right? Writing in English, right? So you learn about it, supposedly absorb those skills, be able to apply them to what you do, because it's not just memorizing and regurgitating. It's actually applying what you learn. But often what we see here in college is that students, they just sit down and they write a thing, and then we give them feedback on what to revise, and they just pick out of that feedback the easiest things to do, the things they think are fixing or correcting their writing, and then turn the thing back in. But it's primarily the same as the previous thing, even though there were large revision changes suggested. And so then I'll say, are you looking at sample essays? Are you reading in our textbook? Are you looking at this video and this and this and that? And some are, some aren't. But some are doing those things and writing down notes. Some aren't. And it shows in the final products. And so I was thinking to myself, what if I could guide students in creating a document that you could use not only to compile your learning and your study of writing, and how to do writing and composition and academic writing and all those issues, but also a really kind of a checklist for revising, that even after finishing a first draft, before you turn it in, things to go through and think about, as you're revising it. Or if you don't have time, you do it with the second or the third draft, because we do multiple drafts in this class, right? So, a way to actively learn, document your learning, and use the learning throughout the course. And so I got this idea when I was reading a sentence where a student had not used a comma before a such as. And the English language, people often argue is a thing that's based on some rules and a lot of exceptions, because you have a rule, like I before E, when in spelling I before E, but then it's like, well, except when it's, after a C, or like sounding like A, such as neighbor and way, and way, W-E-I-G-H, not W-A-Y. I was looking at it, and so it was a, say it was a sentence like, the wise old man archetype is prominent in mythology and stories, and we see this archetype in our modern movies, such as Gandalf the Grey in the Lord of the Rings films, Dumbledore in the Harry Potter films, and a third one, whatever, right? So, so it's like a concept, right? The wise old man. I could show you this in writing, but I'd rather just talk about it. The wise old man. And then such as, which is also like, for example, such as, and then some items. I mean, in my case, there's 3. There could be more than 3. Doesn't really matter. But pretty much, and I would say maybe always, I hadn't double checked it to make sure, but I'm pretty positive because of my experience that always when you put a such as in a sentence, you put comma before it. Now, sometimes students try to do something funky and make it a parenthetical, so it's like comma, such as, comma, something else, and no, I don't think that's ever a thing, right? But so that's like a rule. That's like a thing that you could check, that's like a checklist thing where if you have this on your notes to like, okay, I'm going to go through and make sure that I have a comma before such as in my essay. This is easy to do. You just use Control F. You have a computer. It's amazing. You don't have to like literally read for that and skim the page looking for such as like we had to do back in the Stone Age. You can just use Control F, type such as, click go, and it'll show you all the places you wrote such as together like that in your essay. And then you just make sure you have a comma before them. I hit on this idea of the writing learning companion as an active learning document for you to do active learning, not passive learning, where you're reading, you're learning, you're watching a video, you're taking notes in class, you're paying attention to class, and you write something down, and you're engaged in an active process of absorbing lessons from materials, recording that in a document and thinking about it as you do it, and then reviewing those notes over and over throughout the quarter as you write stuff. And this is really what we want you to do. And I might have to pause here a second because I think I left something out that I wanted to talk about. So hold on a sec. Okay, not that you knew that I just paused, but I did. So there you go. It's an active learning document. It's a compilation of the notes of the things that you're learning, but it's also a checklist guide for revising. And as the document grows, you might section it up. You might have a notes section, and then you might pull stuff out of that for a checklist guide. Now I've set up a template that I'm going to show you that I want you to use. And you can just use it as a starting point. You don't have to keep it that way if you come up with something else that makes sense. I mean, like I just said, I would be likely to have a notes section and then a checklist section because I don't want to have to go through all of my notes every time I'm revising. And there's certain things I want to check for in revision. And this is because I often say to students, this is something to put on your checklist, your revision checklist. But we never like assign you to make a revision checklist or grade you on whether or not you created a revision checklist. Of course, we don't have grades per se in this class with labor-based grading, but you get the point, right? So it's a way to track your learning. It's a way to document your learning, and it's a way to report on your learning at the end of the course. So you can imagine what we may do with this document, which I'll talk about in a minute. So one thing is you're going to be asked to do a lot of reading about writing, but we don't hold you accountable for that reading, right? We don't say, and actually I could have used and should have used the ebook for this. Okay, I think I need to pause again because I was going to talk about the Seagull Handbook here, which I have on paper. I'll just use the paper. I think I'd rather use the paper. So we're going to ask you to do a lot of reading about writing, but we don't hold you accountable for that. Now this quarter we are using the Inquisitive with the Little Seagull Handbook, which essentially tests you on the stuff in the Little Seagull Handbook. So it takes you through a series of, I don't really want to call them tests or quizzes. They're just exercises because I'm not grading it. You're not, like if you get them all right, you don't get more points than somebody else. It's just complete or incomplete, right? So you either complete it or you don't. You either complete all of them or you don't. I was Yeah, I lost my train of thought here. So in a sense, we are holding you accountable for stuff in this. You use it for the journal, so you're held accountable for that because you read and you do things related to the journal. And then there's the inquisitive. But other than that, there aren't any like real, graded events in relationship to this writing or this reading, excuse me, or a lot of the other readings, right? So let me give you some examples of stuff that might go into your document, right? So one of the things I mentioned recently in class, which I think was on Thursday, or excuse me, on Tuesday, this is Thursday, class number 3, was signal phrases. Well, guess what? Let's see if I can get this. It looks out of focus. It looks, yeah, that's a little better. Page 113 of the Seagull Handbook, using signal phrases to introduce source materials. Wow, that's amazing. There's a section on that, and I talked about it. It's almost like I've studied this myself and know things about it. Or, for instance, page 47, ways to structure an argument. Does it use, is that ways of organizing an argument is literally what it says, ways of organizing an argument. Or page 345, for example, which would be one of the things that definitely come up in inquisitive, which is the concept of parallelism that often in sentences, particularly with lists and lists of things that aren't just single words, but are more compound phrases or different kinds of things, or certain types of phrases, that they all have to be the same kind of phrase. There has to be parallel things in your list. You wouldn't shift the way you're phrasing a certain thing. So that's a little Seagull Handbook. That's just 3 potential items that you might have in your list, right? And I talked about inquisitive. And so as you're doing inquisitive, you may add, that's part of the active learning thing, that as you're going through that. So that could be in the notes. But then I might pluck out some of those lessons of things I want to check when I'm revising. Maybe I have a problem with parallelism, or maybe the section on comma splices really strikes a chord with me because I know I do that. Or I come back to you with some feedback and say, oh, I see quite a few comma splices, and maybe I mark a couple, but I'm not going to mark all of them because that's the way this works. I'm not your editor. I'm not your proofreader. I'm your instructor. So I'm not correcting your essay. I'm not giving you a list of things to fix. I'm giving you suggestions on things to revise. And my suggestions come in 2 forms. One is basically required stuff, like this is what you need to do with your essay to improve it, based on the outcomes of the course, based on the criteria for evaluating the essays, et cetera, et cetera. And then other things it would be nice, right? Here's a suggestion. But often when I give suggestions, I'll say there's multiple ways to do these kinds of things, sometimes people do it this way, sometimes people do it that way. And I'll give you some options, because often there isn't just one right answer. With something like a comma before such as, there is just one right answer. But most of the feedback I give you won't be about commas. Most of the feedback I'll give you will be about the structure of your paragraph, the structure of your whole essay, your thesis, the development of your ideas, the use of your sources, et cetera, right? So I'm least interested in commas, actually, but I do feel like we haven't been teaching enough of writing correctness. I like to call it writing correctness and not grammar. We haven't been teaching enough of writing correctness, so we're going to try to do more of that. And get more of that in the course, but this course isn't, you're meant to already know a lot of those things about writing correctness. You're not meant to, be learning those things in this course. This is meant to be on a higher level than that. So then I mentioned other readings. And so one of my favorite other readings, and it was one of the readings for essay 1, was this essay from the 1950s. It's from a 1950s composition textbook written by Paul Roberts that I rewrote when I started teaching, and then rewrote another couple of times. I haven't done another revision of it in quite a few years, but I do think it's a very clever essay that is fun, and kind of walks you through at the beginning the process of a student trying to complete an English composition in a weekend, which is not typically what I would. I give you more time than that. Well, I don't know. You got essay one in week one, and then it was due in week two. So in a sense, but I didn't assign it on Friday. I give you till Monday. That's the scenario here. So like, as you read through here, getting some things written down that you want to learn is a good idea. And one of the things I already have on your template comes out of here, which is pronoun use. I'm trying to find the passage. There it is. So one of the things that we strongly agree on as a department, because departments all across the country, maybe the world, that work with the English language agree on this, is that the YOU pronoun has no place in academic writing except in specific cases. Like if I asked you to write a letter to someone, maybe then you'd use it. You see it a lot though in magazine articles and things written on the internet. So if you're in, and of course texts and Twitter messages and Facebook posts and Instagram posts and all that kind of stuff, you're going to see this quite a bit. But in academic writing, we don't necessarily want to directly address the reader. We do want to think about our audience, and we want to aim what we're doing at our audience, and we have a purpose that we're trying to achieve for the audience. But that doesn't mean we want to write to the audience in the way we would write a letter. We don't want to say you, because then that really limits our audience. My good friend Abby, who has all sorts of better adages for teaching than I do, came up with the when you say you limit the audience to two, me and you, right? So take this example from How to Say Nothing in 500 Words, which is on page 3. So this is about football players. A football player has to practice every day from 3 to 6, and then you are so tired you can't concentrate on your studies, and you feel like dropping off to sleep. Next day you go to class without studying, and you fail the test. Well, are you a football player? I'm not a football player. This is not about me, and it's not about many of you. Some of you may be football players, so you might identify with that. But the original subject was football player. Football player is not substituted by you. And this is something to put on your document, and just do a Control F for YOU and take them out. But you can't just take them out. You have to rewrite the sentence. I can't just take out the word you here and so that it reads, then are you so tired? I have to put something else here, which in this case, I already have it. It's the football player, and so, and maybe I'd rather use players and avoid gendered language, because then I can use they and it's grammatically correct. But there's the thing, and you just use Control F, you search your document. YOU is only going to come up in the words young and youth, and otherwise it's not going to appear in anything except YOU or YOUR. And so then you can identify. So it's a lot harder to get some of the other pronouns out that we also don't want you to use, like our, OUR, and we. The letters WE appear in a lot of different words. So, you can Control F it, but it's going to bring up a lot of stuff. So there's some things with readings that you're extracting some things to put on your document. And I'm giving you a couple of examples. There's other assigned videos. There's notes from class. For instance, I said a lot of hot tips in Tuesday's class. And so some of that stuff might want, carry through to your document. If I reuse this video in the summer or the fall, I don't know if I usually say hot tips in every class. So that I hope would still be true. But if we're summer and fall and I haven't specifically said, here's a hot tip, or here's something to remember, or here's a thing to do, or, here's something to write on your revision checklist, let me know. Also, another thing we should do other than reading resources and watching videos and attending class and taking notes is literally looking at writing and analyzing it. This is what I'm talking. So there's two kinds of study. There's the studying of things written about writing, to instruct you, kind of like, something written about how to take a derivative in a calculus class. And then actually looking at essays to analyze how this stuff was done, which would be very much like looking at someone who's taken a bunch of derivatives and looking at all their math that they wrote out and then showed their work, right? Same kind of thing. So, for example, I give you a lot of samples, and some of them have comments in them. Like, here's my very favorite one. I think it's currently in the classroom in a module of samples, because I have a samples, but it might be in helpful stuff. It's either in sample essays and other work, and I think it is in a page called More Persuasive Samples. Yeah, so if you go into sample essays and other work, you click on More Persuasive Samples. That's a page that shows a whole, series of links to different documents. And this is one of my favorites. But as you can see, I have these notes in the margins. Some of them are positive. For this essay, most of them are positive because it's this close to a perfect essay as I've received. I can't really see a whole lot that's wrong with it. I could really probably dig in with more of a fine-tooth comb and find that. But other essays have comments in them about things that the person should have improved. But I kept the essay because it was doing certain things well, and it was doing enough of those things well that I thought it would be instructive to see both the suggestions for improvement and all the things that the writer was doing well that I marked with, hey, this is cool, or this is a good thesis. I mean, even this person gets a little bit of suggestion here about explicitly using my because should format. So, you could document the learning from literally analyzing essays. And we'll do an assignment coming up later in the quarter where you'll analyze an essay very closely and look at the analysis of at least one other. You work, it's our only group assignment. And I hope this is still true summer and fall. There's another thing that could change, but I don't think it's going to. Now, there's going to be times where I'm going to say, this is a thing to put on your revision checklist, or this is a thing to put in your writing learning companion. So then you should do that. This shows that you pay attention, like you're required to watch these classes. There's one you could attend live optionally, but most people aren't able to. I'm getting about a fourth of the students registered in it every week so far. And of course, this might change what I just said. See, I'm still using this in the fall. We could be on campus, in which case this would be, additional content. So I'll direct you and give you stuff. And I've already put some of those things on the template that I'm going to give you. It's also a way for you to look at and think about the course outcomes that we used in Essay 1. They have them in a place where you're looking at them all quarter, and you're working to improve all of them, not just the 3 you selected for the first essay. Because this is a document that not only will you use all essay long, but you'll actually use it when we get to the end of the quarter. This will be the document that will be the guide for your Essay 1 Draft 2 revision at the end of the quarter. Essay 1 Draft 2 at the end of the quarter. And then you'll submit this document with your final writing portfolio. So I'm not going to make it a separate assignment except for this video, but it'll be something you work on all quarter long. You'll use it with Essay 1 Draft 2, which I just unpublished. Now, this course might not be true in future quarters, but I had that assignment published, but now I'm going to have to rewrite it. So I just unpublished it so I can rewrite it so it works. In future quarters, I might have it, like even next quarter in the summer, I might have that all done, and that's not true because I'm making this video in spring of 2021, in which we're still not on campus, and I'm making it from home. So you'll submit that with your portfolio. So let's look at. Well, first of all, I want to show you my notes on what to do for this video, and then I'll show you the template, and then we're out, and probably went a little longer than I had planned, but I can't keep my comments to what is considered the optimal length for a video. I just can't do it. That's not how instruction works. So forgive me. I try to keep it moving and try to keep it light, somewhat interesting. So I'm going to show you here in a minute. These are notes for me. I'm going to show you the template and what I put in it. But for this video, you will take the template and you'll save as. So you'll save it under a new name, probably with your name in it would be a good idea. Say like Jolene Williams or Williams Jolene Writing Learning Companion. I just picked Jolene out of my brain. I could have named, I do remember many of your names, but Jolene was the first one that popped into my mind. Please forgive me. Except Jolene's probably not upset about it because, it's probably because of the song, the song. If you don't, Google it and don't tease her about it because she's a cool person. Anyway, probably should edit that all out, but I'm not going to. All right, so you'll save as, put your name in the file name. You should get in the habit of putting your name and all the file names you submit to an instructor with your last name first, because think about why you might want to do that. Why the instructor might like that. Think about that. And then you're going to customize it. So you're going to start making it personally yours. Add some things, for instance, that you wrote about in Essay 1. Add to it things from my other classes and videos, such as my hot tips from Tuesday's class, which I hope will always be true in future quarters. Then you'll submit your current version of this document, showing that you've customized and added to it, and showing your commitment to use it all quarter as the assignment for this class, for this attendance condition for this class, this video class that you're watching right now. So let me show you the template, and I'll have it with this video assignment. For those of you that don't own Microsoft Word, with these kinds of things, you can always take this file and load it to your Google Drive and use it there. And then if I think we figured out that when you submit something and you pick Google Drive in the submission tool in Canvas, it loads a file for us, because otherwise we'd be getting all these Google links that don't work. So it creates it as a file and submits it that way. Other times I tell students to literally download the document off of their Google Drive and load that file. Even on a Chromebook, I think you can load files that way. So I called it here the Writing Learning Companion. You can put your name and other stuff in here if you want. You can dress it up in various ways. But again, remember, you should rename it. Take the word template out because it's no longer a template once you've renamed it. And like I said, put your last name first name, and then you might use the underscore or hyphens to separate or whatever you want to do. So I put the course outcomes here at the top so you could think about them, and then relist. You could just copy and paste the ones you selected for Essay 1. And then I grouped it here into categories so that you can start putting things into things based on categories: content, organization, style, writing correctness, format, and source use, and anything that doesn't fit those other categories. So it'd be the other category. So right here under writing correctness, I put the always a comma before such as. Under the commas category, which I would probably list some more comma rules there, right? Under style, I put eliminated second person pronouns because it's not grammatically incorrect. It's an issue of style, and it is the style in academic writing. And then, I put in some ideas here in organization, but I left it empty, like what are the 3 parts of the introduction? Well, assignment 4, when you watch the introduction video, has that information. So You know, and I'd already talked about how it's usually a single paragraph, but how we may expand to 2 paragraphs with some of our essays. When would we do that? Why would we do that? How would we do that? That's what those questions are there for, to kind of prompt what kinds of notes you would put there. Then you know, thesis statements is important. Obviously, you'd have something about that. Start paragraphs with topic sentences that are a claim. It's also known as a point in the pie structure. Pie structure is something that could go in here. You know, like some things could have been organization or they could have been content. You know, like there's no like wrong where to put it as long as you understand it and can use it. Like I could have put this under organization. I feel it's organizational, but it's also content. Then, like I said, if it was me, you know, once I have a bunch of notes and it's difficult to go through all of them, I might make a separate section down here, a checklist for revision, and make that separate pages. So maybe you can print them out if I want to, because often people like to work with paper. They have the paper sitting here next to the computer and do that whole thing. So this is the assignment. This is what you're doing. This is the attendance condition for this video class is getting that template, customizing it, and sharing it with me. That's all you got to do. So, you know, like I said, a lot of these Thursday classes won't be the traditional notes. There'll be other kinds of things, and so this is one of those. Next week we'll be back with essay 2, and a video about our second essay assignment, which I think will still be true in both the summer and the fall if I reuse this video. So I know I've said that multiple times, but I probably am going to reuse this video. I think you got that. Anyway, thanks for paying attention. I hope I brought this in a reasonable amount of time, and I'll see you around the classroom. Take it easy.